So we're doing something that I've never done, actually. I don't know why I haven't done it, but we've never done this in here. It's really a very strange thing that we haven't. But having conversations with my wife, who is the director at World in Conversation, and really thinking about listening to the conversations that you all are having in your World in Conversation groups, she came up with this idea for not only today's class, but next Tuesday's class. So this is actually a two-part class on immigration. And I'm going to explain it in a couple minutes. But essentially, these two lovely humans right here, you're up here today, and you're going to be up here on Tuesday. Again, it's a two-part class, so it's today and Tuesday. And then the two of you, you're not going to speak much today, but you're going to speak much more on Tuesday. And your job is to pick out the most important things that you hear. And imagine that you were writing immigration policy for, really, we're going to talk about the United States, but it's really every country is going through a similar kind of thing. You're going to imagine that you're writing immigration policy, and you're going to figure out what are the most important things that you hear in today's class and on Tuesday's class, okay? But in the meantime, just, introduce yourselves if you could. So
Hello, my name is Logan Todd. I study electrical engineering here. I'm a senior. I'm from Pittsburgh.
Hi, my name is Min. I'm senior in Comp Sci. Yeah, I'm from Philly.
From Philly. Dude. And so you're one of those people with two first names. Well, it's confusing. So if I call you Todd, Logan, you go by either one, right? It doesn't matter. Yeah, you kind of have to if you have two first names. Let's go with this next slide. So look, we're doing this. This is going to be a really interesting class, and the two of you, again, your job is to listen really carefully and take notes thinking about what's the single most important thing. So the way we talk about immigration, the way I hear it discussed out in the media and among people and so on, is that it's really like a national divide between, good people and bad people, or moral people and immoral people, and compassionate people and uncompassionate people. It's just a divide about that. It gets narrowed down into singular issues. And that would be like, you watch a football game and you only talk about only one play matters. Like the very end of the game, the one play at the end of the game. Well, it's not the one play. It's all the plays. It's also all the plays that led up to that. But you're just focusing on one play. Or, it's like being judged on one thing that you've done. Or like your family. Imagine you have a lot of you have parents who are sort of annoying. I don't know, just whatever, annoying. And everyone knows they're annoying. Everyone thinks they're annoying, right? But you, in your mind, are going like, yeah, I know my dad. He's kind of a jerk in all these ways, but he's also a really good dad. And then you got to try to convince people that he's a really good dad when they're only seeing the jerk side of your dad, because that's the only thing everybody talks about. And you feel like you're just climbing a hill that's impossible to climb. So, if you want to, so we're really at an impasse about very narrow range of issues. And the only way to understand the impasse, to really understand the issue, this immigration, is to really see the many, many different facets that go into immigration as an issue. Okay? And so I'm picking out a whole bunch of them to look at. There are more of these. There are different ways to talk about it. But we're going to squeeze them into two classes. And if you look at these, if you look at all these issues, man, it is a lot of things that are going on. And frankly, go to the next slide. These are the two that we're talking about all the time. It's morality and justice and law and stability. And if you lean left, it's all about morality and justice. And if you lean right, it's all about law and stability. But can you go back one? But look at all these other ones that are part of this. Okay, go forward to those two. Now, here's the thing. Yeah. If immigration were really this simple, we'd have resolved it a long time ago. You know, it's kind of interesting that sometimes, like you might think to yourself, I think to myself sometimes, hey, how is it that, like, for example, when I was studying undocumented immigration, when I was a master's level student, I was 20, I started studying immigration kind of seriously when I was 23, and then 24 and 25 and 26, so for 3 years. And I thought I was going to do my PhD work on immigration, but turns out I went in a different direction. But I was studying undocumented or illegal immigration. And at that point in time, we were estimating the numbers of immigrants who were illegal, undocumented, today, the numbers are somewhere between 12, 13, and maybe upwards to 14 million. Now, you might hear some people saying it's 26 million, 30 million, whatever. That I can just tell you, that's absurd. That's not happening. But it is. Say 12 to 14 million is probably a good bet. So it was 9 to 11 million, now it's 12 to 14 million, 4 decades later, and we haven't resolved it. And it was an issue back then, but we couldn't kind of get past it. It's taken us 40 years, and we're still struggling with it. If it were this simple, with 2 issues, you might imagine that we'd have solved it by now, but we haven't. And why haven't we solved it? Maybe because it's far more complex than we imagine it to be. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation. Talan, you can come on up, my friend. We're going to do 3 of these today, and we're going to do 5 of them on Tuesday. And your job is to figure out what are the most important things that you hear that if we are to establish an immigration policy, these are the things that we really need to focus on. And go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
How's it going? My name's Talan Schultz. I'm from Harrisburg. I'm a sophomore.
Wait, how do you pronounce your name?
Talan.
Talan?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was right. So what you and I are going to do for 15, 20 minutes or so is just have a conversation about morality and justice, okay? And I just want to see, we're just going to talk about what you see, okay? And again, remember, you're not an expert on this, so I'm not going to ask you questions that require expert level. But what I want, as I'm asking him questions, I want you to try to answer the questions also. And we're going to walk through just kind of the layers of how this plan works out, right? So first off, in what ways is immigration, and we can look at legal and illegal, you can take legal first. In what ways is it fair and unfair? What do you think are some of the, and by the way, if anybody who wants to add something in while we're talking, you got something you want to throw out that he doesn't say or I don't say, raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. Bro, in what ways, what do you see? Like, is it fair or unfair? What do you think some of the issues are?
I think what's going on is really tough to talk about. Being up here, this is a tough thing to speak on because it's very polarizing. But
you said you like to talk about controversial things.
I do. I like doing this. You guys might not agree, but
okay. So your goal is to have everybody here disagree with you and agree with you, because we're looking at this from multiple angles, right? So okay, what's fair and unfair?
I first off want to say our immigration system is not
good. Hold the mic
good.
as close as you can.
Our immigration system is terrible. There's a lot of things that are going on with ICE-related incidents that is very, very, very hard to watch and hear about, but I do think there's the precedents where if you do something illegal, there is some sort of action that has to be taken.
Okay, so you've already said, so there's something unfair. What's unfair? You said it's hard to watch. Like, does that mean it's unfair or?
Yeah, I think it's completely unfair that anybody's lives had been taken in any sort of way, especially by ICE, because that is the main thing that everybody sees today.
Okay, and then people who are breaking the law just by being here and being sent out of the country, which is what ICE is doing. How is that? Is that fair or is that unfair?
That's a tough question because criminals should not be here, as everybody I think would agree.
Okay, all right,
but
so
I wouldn't say coming in illegally is you're a felon, you have to be kicked out.
okay, so
I don't think
what
that.
constitutes a criminal? Who's a criminal?
Anybody who does something maliciously towards another person, I would constitute as a criminal.
Well, hang on, man. That would be like cheating on an exam in here because
To an extreme effect, like murder, fraud, theft.
So first off, right? You just got on a very slippery slope, okay? Now, mind you, right? What's gonna happen here? So keep this in mind. What's gonna happen here is my job is just to start pointing out all the slippery slopes that Talan is on. So you got on one already. You're like, yeah, anybody who's a criminal. But I'm like, well, what? Speeding is like identity theft, stealing someone's finding money on the ground and keeping it. Like, what's a criminal?
Like I said, I would say more extreme things I would classify as something punishable, not necessarily stealing a $20 bill off the ground.
Okay, well, now you got, let's go with a felony, right? Shoplifting felony. Let's say you shoplift $990 worth of items. That's a misdemeanor. But it's $11 more, it's a felony. So is a misdemeanor or felony? Like, how about that? You got an immigrant, and you got to decide. Okay, how about that?
Are they a citizen or are they?
They're an immigrant. They're undocumented, let's say. And they're the people you're watching ICE grab them out of their car because we're not going to talk about ICE this whole time. You brought it up. So ICE is grabbing this person out of their car. Their child's hanging onto their legs. But they committed a felony because they stole $1,001 worth of goods. And then over here, ICE is dragging someone out of their car, and they stole $990 worth of goods, which is a misdemeanor. And you're like, wait, that's a misdemeanor. Wait, that's a felony. So you don't have to, you can just be like.
Yeah, I don't really have a certain line that you have to cross to decide who gets to stay and leave.
Okay, so how about, to what degree is legal immigration fair? Just legal immigration. We bring a certain number of people in every year.
The United States is a place that majority of people want to be if you do not live here. I have friends who are from Brazil who say their family, their end goal is to move to America. And I would say most people would die on that hill that they want to become an American one day. But the immigration system is very limited. Getting any sort of citizenship and like a green card, that's very difficult. And I think becoming a citizen is very difficult. But I do think most people deserve a chance, but aren't given that chance.
Okay, so now you're in a tough position, right? Because now you've said there are all these people that want to come here, or they want to go somewhere. By the way, we study people around Pew has been studying people around, or Gallup, I think it's Gallup's been studying people around the world to see how many people would like to leave their country of origin, where they're living, country of residence, and leave and migrate somebody else and never return. Permanent migration. And the percentage of people around the world who want to do that is like 14 to 16%. I think it recently went up to 16% of people around the world who want to leave. And the U.S. is the number one destination for people, but not by much. It's like, yeah. So of all those people who want to leave, I think, as I remember, like 30% of them want to come to the U.S., but like 70% want to go elsewhere. So I just want to say that. But okay, but now you've run into a problem. You got all these people that want to come here, and there's not enough space. So how do you make it fair?
I don't really have an answer to that. I haven't studied our immigration system completely in any way.
Okay.
I just know it's very
how would
difficult.
you do it? Like you see you see the slippery slope you're on, right? Like you're these two guys over here. You got to come up with a policy. You hear everybody talking about all of this, like immigration, the system's broken. Well, fix it. How do you fix it? You got many more people who want to come than you have space. So like, how do you think about that?
I think the turnaround rate could somehow be increased. It takes a long time, from my knowledge, to get citizenship. Whenever you're going to apply, it takes a very long time. Could take years. I think there has to be some quicker rate to get people into the United States, or in some cases be denied for some sort of extreme case. But
so what do you do about the fact then that you have these rapid changes in some communities? Immigrants tend to come in waves. You go where your relatives are, where people are, which is why you suddenly, you've got like 5 families from Somalia suddenly in this community in Minnesota. And then like 6 months later, you got 50. And you're like, damn, how'd we go from 5 to 50? So the problem is, if you do that, then suddenly you got these waves of people, and you got all these other people living here who are going, wait, what the hell? I suddenly got all these Malaysians or Somalis or whatever. So that feels really unsettling for people. So, all right.
I don't mind diversity in any way. I don't think waves of people coming in is a bad thing necessarily.
Okay, but how about this? Let's look at undocumented immigration. How's it unfair? Who's it unfair to? Who's it fair to? Let's start there. Who's it fair to? We allow a certain number of undocumented immigrants. Remember I told you like 40 years I've been studying this, and what you see is like, what we've seen kind of. Well, hang on. I'm not going to lead you. Go ahead. Like, who's it fair to? Like, who's it good for?
I think it's good for the economy in many ways. The more people we get, no matter if you're legal or illegal, undocumented, whatever way you want to phrase it, I think the more people, the better the economy.
Who's it unfair to?
It's unfair to everybody trying to do it in the immigration system, who's jumping the system and thinking they're above it.
Okay, so it's unfair to people who are in the system going like, I've been waiting 6 years for my green card, and this person comes over, and under the Biden administration, for example, people were coming up to the border for a certain number of months, and they applied and immediately got like some kind of, it wasn't a green card, but they got like put in line in a way. It's like, to get a green card, it's like, damn, that wasn't fair to all those people who've been waiting 5 or 6 years. How about when undocumented immigrants undercut wages? Your dad's a carpenter, right? And your dad's making, $50 an hour, let's say. And you got these guys coming up from Mexico going like, yeah, man, I'll build that shed for you for $800. And your dad's like, I'll build it for $4,000. So who's it unfair to?
I don't really know how to answer that, because if they're offering to do it for a cheaper price and they are willing to do it, I don't see what the issue is.
Think about that though, right? Like think about it. Imagine your dad's a carpenter. What would your dad say? Your dad's a carpenter, or your mom's a carpenter, let's say. Anyway, I'd be sexist here, okay? Your mom's, hang on one sec. All right, hang on. Your mom's a carpenter, okay? And she's not in a union because where she works, there's no union, but the prevailing wage basically is $55 an hour. And she's bringing food home, food on the table, right? These guys come up. These guys from Ecuador, right? They come up. They get in the country. They come to your community and they start going around with little sheets of paper, going like, "Hey, man, we'll build sheds for you. It's your mom's specialty." Right? She's bringing food home for the table, bro. She's paying your college tuition. And they come up and they're like, yeah, they sneak in the border. They sneak in the country. And then they're like, yeah, okay, we'll do it for half the price of her. Do you really? If I'm your mom and I'm sitting at the table, I'm like, Talan, I can't pay your tuition bill because these Mexican guys are putting me out of work. And you're going, what would you say to her?
I don't know what I would say. I wouldn't take legal action. I wouldn't go report them.
No, I got you. But would you feel like, oh man, that really sucks?
Yeah, that would absolutely suck for anybody in that situation. But
would you say, no, you're in the situation. I just put you in the situation. Would you say like, yeah, it's kind of unfair, man. Like shit. Now I got to drop out of school and go work. I'll go work with the Mexican guy or the Ecuadorian guys. Like, you know what I mean? By the way, I'm not like, you all get this, right? Talan's in an impossible situation here because no matter what he says, no matter what you say, I'm going to come up with some other opposite thing. So like, you'd probably feel like it was unfair though. Yeah, I would, man. Bro.
So I actually have two things to say on that. The first thing I'm going to mention is when you're specifically talking about some immigrant coming in and offering their services for a lesser value, there's actually a term for that in economics. It's called dumping, and it's extremely illegal. Like your country can get sued for that sort of thing. It's usually not for labor or anything like that, but labor is a good or service that can be traded. So I would absolutely be angry on like a legal level if that sort of thing happened to my family.
But hang on though, I do want to say, no, that's good. Just go ahead. Go ahead. Yep, that's good. Thanks.
The second thing I want to mention is I actually agree with him that a felony line of if you commit a felony, this is the point at which I would be uncomfortable and like you should be deported or something, because people are going to skirt the line no matter what that line is. If somebody is skirting the line and they're going to shoplift $990, you can't stop them. They're going to skirt that line no matter where you put that line. And a felony line should be a line where we go, at what point is somebody not trying to game the system, crossing a line at which point they should be punished for over a year in prison? And I think at that point, if you are an immigrant and you're crossing that line, then yeah, like you probably aren't a net positive in this country. Okay. So I actually do think that line is fair.
Well, but let me okay, do you agree with that? What he said?
There shouldn't be a line that you cross and then you go from being in America to out of the United States to out of it.
All right, so let's say, for example, bro, so I'm with you, so you can get the mic back. Thanks, man. That's a really good comment. Well, the problem is all these things are going to be slippery slopes, right? So there are a lot of people that are getting taken out of the country who there's a lot of gray areas there. So, you gave an example that doesn't sound very gray, but we can come up with lots and lots of gray areas. Okay, let me do another one. How about immigrants? Is it fair to immigrants who get caught up in the system accidentally?
Can you go more into depth?
Yeah, like for example, the reason, because someone was talking to my ear. Hey, bro, can you just give Della your name? Tell your bro in the green. Can you just tell her your name? So we have your name. Yeah. Thanks, man. People are talking in my ear all the time. I'm like, come on, man. Okay, how about this? How about, so what is the fair way to approach, let's just stay with it, illegal immigration? You got people coming, you can't stop them, right? Because you're not going to stop people. It's like, people who really, they're going to just keep coming, right? How about just once they get here, they're here now. It's not like you stop them at the border. Here's the border, okay? I just want to see if you come up with a gray area here. Here's the border. Now, like you all hear stories about how the Obama administration sent more people back to across the border. ICE during Obama rounded up more people and sent them out of the country than the Trump administration. Have you heard that? People say that? Okay, well, what happened in the Obama administration is they stopped people at the border, and then they count them as an ICE roundup. It's like, yeah, we sent them back. That's not stopping them up. They also were catching people in New York State and Minnesota and California or wherever, but it's at the border. So it's one thing if I step over the border and you apprehend me and you're like, nah, dude, go back, all right? Because I was at the border. I see how it works. It's pretty simple. But it's another thing if I get all the way here and I start working and I have a livelihood. My family's here and all that. So how do you make a distinction there between who you kick out and who you don't?
I don't really have an idea of what you would do if somebody has a life and a family. That's one of the things I really have a hard time dealing with whenever I hear about what ICE is doing, because there's people getting taken away from their kids.
So there's some people, should it matter though? I mean, does it really matter? If you're going to solve the immigration, it's like you got to solve it. You can't start getting into this gray area here. You just got to make stuff happen.
I think there needs to be some sort of standard of what is going to be forgivable and what's not. I don't know if that's a time frame of how long you're going to be here, or if it's the second you walk across the border, you have to leave once you get quote unquote found.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. What is the likelihood that you could come to an agreement with, if I pick out 5 random people in class, what's the likelihood that the 6 of you could come up to some kind of agreement about what would be acceptable and what wouldn't be?
Probably 0%.
Okay, so now we got an issue here, right? Because now we're continuing on the slippery slope. It's like, oh, damn. I know, I'm with you, right? Because I think the same thing. Like, yeah, we got to come up with some standard. Well, shit, we can't even come up with a standard. For anything, man. We're arguing about the stupidest, silliest stuff. Like, how are we going to do that? Bro, you're doing a good job, though, by the way, bro. Yeah.
I think the solution for illegal immigration is not more illegal immigration.
Wait, hang on, though. Hang on. That's way too big, my friend.
I'm trying to get there.
Stick with this, though. Think about what's fair. We're going to talk about 8 facets of this. You're talking about fairness and what am I calling it? Fairness and rightness. What's fair, okay. What's and unfair. Stay right there.
What's not fair would be to anyone that has gone through the system, are now in the country, had to pay money, had to come into the country legally, for somebody else to come into the country and not have to do anything. Because one, that puts you in a worse financial position if you do come to the country legally. You are now basically starting from square one with nothing, as opposed to someone that walked across the border. Maybe they have, money in a suitcase that they bring over and they can start a new life right away. Instead of, again, some people will come over and have to live on the streets. So it's not fair to the people that come to the country legally, and it's also not fair to the illegal immigrants that can't start a life right away and have to live on the streets. I don't think we should be able to allow illegal immigrants, hey, yeah, they're in the country, but they're still living on the streets. I don't think that's good.
Okay, all right, that's cool. Thanks, man. I got one for you. How about the fairness between, I think President Trump offered visas, green cards to people who could pay $1 million or something like that. What about that? Like rich people, you pay $1 million, but you over here, I talked to a guy, I was down in Mexico. We went down to the border and we went over to Mexico, and there was this guy there from Guatemala. So we're just walking around Mexico talking to people, right? There are all these immigrants. They were sort of waiting to line up to decide if they could get across the border or not. So this guy was from Guatemala, and I started asking him about his life in Guatemala. Dude, basically, he had a plot of land about as large as that screen, okay? And Guatemala, where he lived, was in a drought. So it's like, his children were starving. He had 3 kids. Children were starving. Wife, they're starving, right? So if you had the experience, have you ever traveled in Latin America? Okay, so they're starving. He's like, I'm gonna get up. I gotta feed my kids. I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do, right? We say, okay, you're not gonna do it. You're not coming in. Oh, but you can. You got $1 million? I give that to us, man. Hey, we'll give you a green card. Okay, is that fair? How fair is that?
I don't think money should be a deciding factor on who deserves a better livelihood and who doesn't.
But it is on all immigration policy. If you got money, you're more like, there are a lot of people in this classroom, man, who you're here at Penn State because your parents have money. And you're a lot of your classmates right here. They're only here because their parents have money. So
yeah, I don't think it's fair, but it doesn't really change what's happening.
Okay, so it's not fair, but it's how the world works. It's all about money. So it's like, well, how else are you going to do it? Why not? Isn't that, in a way, the most fair way, if you can afford it? Huh. In a way it is, though, right? Isn't that capitalism, kind of, in a way? I mean, it's another consideration, right? The guy I was talking to, I don't remember his name. He didn't speak any English. He never got a chance to learn English. But, you got people in this classroom they speak English fluently because they come from families with money. Is that just how the world goes?
Partially, I would say.
Okay, I got another question then. We're going to go to you. How about this? How about children whose parents brought them here when they were adults? I had a student 2 semesters ago who was in this position, in this classroom. Their parents brought her here illegally when she was a little kid. She still didn't have her paperwork because they were illegal and she was illegal, and she was at Penn State because she could be at Penn State. It's not her fault. Like, what the fuck? I didn't ask to come here. She doesn't speak the language of her home country. She didn't have any relatives back in her home country. She has nowhere to go. And we're like, yeah, but whatever, you're illegal. We're going to send you back. How about that?
I don't think that's fair to have to kick a child who was brought over out. I think that's a really tough topic to really.
Okay, but we've already said, though, that she jumped the line ahead of other people. So she's not operating in a fair way because she got something just because her parents grabbed her and came to the U.S.
Then it goes back to where are we going to draw the line of how long are you going to be here to make you immune to getting.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Are you guys able to see a line here? Because we're going to depend on you. You're going to have to write the policy for us here. Okay, that's a great, yeah, exactly. Now we're there. Bro. Hey, what's your name, by the way?
Michael.
Michael, okay.
So I guess I would question whether making it easier for illegal immigrants to come in, being unfair to legal immigrants really matters. Because I think of if you have a weed conviction, and I think that putting you in jail and putting that out a felony is absurd. And in some sense, it's unfair for like people to have a weed conviction to now be able to smoke weed legally. But that's not an argument to say that like you shouldn't decriminalize weed. It's
Okay.
just
All right. Okay, so you have that. You have someone who breaks the law today. They broke a law 5 years ago that is no longer illegal today. Right? How about that? Yeah, they broke a law then, man. You don't go by that. They broke the law.
I don't really have any strong feelings on that.
Uh-huh. You would if you had to write the policy. Right? Like I got you. I hear that, man. So now what we've done, we've taken this morality and justice conversation and we've really complicated it, okay? All right, dude. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. You rock. Nice job, man. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go. All right, so here, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so remember, all of these, we've only dealt with the one on the top left, and now we're going to go to the one on the bottom left, law and stability, okay? And did you have a question from the stream? Do you have one, actually? First off, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lynea. I'm a senior in criminology. I'm from Colorado.
Colorado.
You can't tell.
Yeah. Wait, do we have it? All right, man, hang on. Let's just see what the stream says. This is an interesting conversation, right? Kenji says, what reasons are people against immigration? What would happen if other countries responded? Kenji, stay tuned on Tuesday. We're going to answer that question right there. All right? Yeah. And also, how has immigration become an issue now when it was the forefront of all past administrations? There was cooperation between local. Yeah. Why now? And does that matter? There you go, Talan, right? Why now? Why is it suddenly a moral issue? Where was the issue back then? Does that make it more moral or less moral? Is it a thing that we just now focus on and we should have been focusing on? Yeah, okay, that's a good question. All right, man. All right, let's go to this. We're going to go back to morale. We're going to go back to the slide, law, the one with the 2. Law and social stability. Yep. No, this one right here, second page. That one right there. Okay? Okay, so now. Lynea. All right. So listen. So now we're going to do law and stability. So, all right. So, Layla, you can go to the next slide. All right, man. So what's the virtue? What's the virtue of being a nation that's governed by the rule of law? Like codes of conduct, the rule of law.
It's very important to follow the rule of law. I mean, we have rules for a reason. And that's why we follow the Constitution. It's the oldest document in time, but we still follow it because those rules are important.
Why are they important? Like, what are they intended to prevent or intended to enable?
I think it's the foundation of our country. It makes sure that there is that line for everyone to follow, and I think it sets a standard of what you can do, and what it means to be an American, I guess.
Okay, and now you got these different layers of government, right? You have the federal, you have the state, you have the county level, you have the local level. So you got a lot of people putting a lot of things together. And what happens if we're not following similar codes of conduct or rules of law?
I think it's kind of like a chain reaction. If one branch doesn't follow something, I think it follows suit. But we also do have what is it called? each branch it's checks and balances.
Yeah,
We have
okay.
a checks and balances, so we kind of check on each branch. So they kind of all have to follow each other.
And so
We hold
you
each
know-
other accountable.
Okay, so we want a system. We want things to function smoothly. Like in this class, you want to come in every day. You want to know what's going to happen. If it was just complete messiness, like, you know what I mean? You don't know. There's no syllabus. There's like, oh my God, what a mess. Like, it's not good. People follow traffic rules, right? Follow the traffic rules, man. It's safer. It's better for everybody. So it also prevents corruption, right? Do you think about what's corrupt? Like, do you have any thought on that? Like corruption? Like, do you see that?
Yes, I think we all have this instinct to follow like law or
Yeah.
like follow each other. I mean, like every country has it, every like nation, like we all have our own like code of conduct. And I think we naturally follow that, or we naturally create that. And so corruption just happens when there's one person who just doesn't believe in that or tries to use it for their own gain.
Yeah, okay, or a group of people. I think about like Afghanistan. So we've been working in Afghanistan for about 10, 15 years. I don't remember now, but right now, like in Afghanistan, the Taliban are in control. But really, the people making so many decisions are these religious clerics who supposedly follow the Quran, but a lot of them can't even read, like they're illiterate. And so out in all of these rural areas, in these places where it's people just like this cleric who just has power because they have power, they just decide based on what they think the Quran says, but they don't have any idea because they're illiterate and they can't even read it. It's just completely corrupt. So you don't want that, right? You don't want corruption. You want things to run smoothly. Okay. So what are the consequences of it? Of not enforcing laws that are on the books?
I think some consequences. I mean, if you think the law, I mean, there's jail, like incarceration. There's also your like peers. They see you as somebody who didn't follow the rules, like the labeling theory kind of thing. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think not. Yeah, I don't know. That's actually.
So how about just for you, when people aren't following? You ever been like you go out in this town on a Friday night or a Saturday night? You ever been out at like 1 a.m? Do you feel really super safe? It's like it's a lot of people out, man. They're partying really hard. How safe do you feel?
I mean, in State College, I feel pretty safe.
But think about on a late night when people are really drunk and
No.
shit's coming down everywhere. How safe do you feel?
Not very safe. But I like just take precautions for myself. So
Okay, but you take precautions because you don't
Yeah.
really feel safe, right? So now you have people not following rules. There aren't enough police here. There are far too many drunk students. And there are too few police. And people able to police things, to keep things in control. Things start to fall apart. So it's like, yeah, that's not good, right? I mean, it's unstable.
yeah, but to some extent, like all of us have broken the law or done something bad. I think every single one of us in this room has. So I think in some way, I think it's not as detrimental to like
But
it.
what if now, let's go to a Friday night at midnight, okay? And there's no police. The police are gone. Police just leave town. Word gets out, State College police just like, they all went home. They went on strike, I don't know, whatever they did. They all had to go somewhere else. There's nobody. What are you going to say to yourself?
I probably wouldn't leave the house, or at least I would take precautions. But I also try to see like the best in people. Like I don't necessarily think that if like someone's behind me that they're gonna hurt me, or everybody's like intent on breaking the law. So
Okay, so how about this? How about, also the other thing is like the law exists to ensure for you and me. So it's like if we follow the law, if other people break the laws that we're following, there's going to be consequences. So like they're not going to get ahead. They're not going to be able to get things that we don't get. There's a level of fairness. Go back to the fairness question, right? The system is working. People are following. It's fair. It's fair for you. It's fair for me.
But I think sometimes people get stuck in this system. They get the consequence for their action. Let's say it's for like a minor offense, and all of a sudden, like that has changed the whole course of their life, and now they can't ever get rid of that. So if like they got a misdemeanor, a felony, and it's like a drug charge or something, they will forever be affected by that one thing. So I think those consequences can also have a huge effect on people and what they do in their future.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Okay, that's cool. I like that. I like that. Now you got this immigration issue, right? We've got, let's say, 12 to 14 million undocumented immigrants here. And we don't know who they are. Things are happening.
America was built on immigrants. We have ancestors in all of our lives that were immigrants. I don't know when it became a moral issue, like you were talking about.
Well, it's always been a moral issue.
I see both sides when it comes to like economy.
No, but stick with this one.
Yeah.
Stick with this one. So you got all these people out there who are they're not really predisposed. Okay, first off, the one thing immigrants don't want anywhere in the world is to get sent back home, right? Unless, you don't want to get sent back home, especially if you don't have documentation. So you want to do everything by the book as you possibly can, which is why we see crime rates among undocumented immigrants. They're lower than documented people everywhere in the world. But still, you got like this system where we don't know who these people are and what they're doing and where they are, and like, is that a good thing? Is that okay? Like, is that a problem? How is that a problem?
I think it is an issue, especially like you said, like not knowing what people are doing, not knowing if they're doing something bad or good. It can be bad.
Doesn't it in a way sort of raise, like, if we're not going to apply the law here to like this group of people in the classroom, then people in the other 5 sections are going to be thinking, well, they're not applying the law there, so wouldn't it be natural for people to be like, well, why should I follow the law? Like, why should it matter for me? Like, it starts to call everything into question. It seems to me. How do you see it?
I think the immigration process, like getting your papers, is there for a reason. But the reason that there's so many undocumented immigrants is because the system is so hard, and they're not able to get the papers. So there's like, what's the point of me waiting 20 years to get my?
Yeah, but the system's hard because it is hard.
Yeah.
You start working for me, and I say like, hey, listen, I'm going to start you at $20 an hour. And you're thinking, I want $30 an hour. I need 30 right now. And I'm like, well, you're only going to get 20 an hour. But if you work for a while, you'll get 30. And so, therefore, you start stealing from me because you're only making 20 and you want 30. And I'm like, dude, you can't steal from me. We agreed on 20. So, yeah, so people come. It's really hard for people to get citizenship. But does that mean it's okay for people to just sneak over the border and be here illegally?
No.
I mean, you see, I just put you on a slippery slope, right?
Yeah.
So now what do you do?
I think it's a lot to put on one person to be able to make that decision. But I don't think I think people should at least try to go through the process. And
if they can't try, then you're saying our laws are not important enough. That like, yeah, you should try, but our laws aren't that important. So just try, but if you can't, whatever, sneak in.
No, not necessarily. But we also do have, like, in the law that people who are allowed to come here if they're trying to seek asylum, and that's there for a reason.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. How do you decide? This guy who I was talking to in Mexico, right? He's from Guatemala. I was like, dude, I asked him. So I told him, look, man, you need to go back home, because you're never going to make it across the border. He didn't know. He's from this little community in Guatemala. He's not reading the news. The guy, he has no idea what's going on at the border. And Lori, my wife, and I are telling him, bro, actually, everything's changed now. So, you came up here from Guatemala, but you need to just go back home because you're never going to get across the border. It's like, okay. He said, but I want to file for asylum. And I said, how are you going to file for asylum? Tell me why you deserve asylum. And he came up with some story. And I'm like, how do I know that's true? I'm like, can you call your wife on the phone? No, because his wife doesn't have a phone. How do I know it's true? So now you run into this problem. Right?
Yeah, I would say like that's when it comes. I feel like there should be a different program that specifically like helps people who've been here maybe undocumented for 10 years or something, and they go through a different process where they're here, they've never broken the law, they've done everything right. Like it's just they've never gotten it. I feel like there has to be different programs because people are getting stuck in this limbo or just being let in, or I don't think that every immigrant is coming in here thinking they want to break the law because, like you said, they're afraid because if they break the law, even a minor offense, there's a chance that they'll get deported.
Okay, no, I like your response. It's a great response, and there are other pathways for asylum seekers, and there's a lot of research. One of the reasons it takes a long time is because we are doing our research on people. So hey, let me ask you this question. So, what are the social costs to enforcement? We need to enforce the laws that are on the books. There's some social costs to that.
I think we're seeing it right now.
What are you seeing?
People are angry, and people are getting hurt, and there are people
who's angry?
The immigrants, people who've been here, or people who are legally here, going through the process. A lot of people have been going through the process for years, and then they get taken right back, or in some cases, they've never been to their home country, and they're being sent there with nothing.
Also, all the protesters, right?
Yes, the protesters. I think there's just a lot of anger, and we're seeing the social cost of that, and it's causing a lot of division.
So you study criminology.
Yes.
And so by nature of everything you study, you also are studying social breakdown and division and so on. So I'm seeing a lot of division. I'm hearing you're seeing the same thing. So what's that do for us as a nation? Like what are the consequences of that?
It breaks us apart. We start associating different friends in different classes, or if we have a friend that believes one thing, we're not friends with them ever again. Or on social media, there's a lot of polarization too, or the way that the news is presented. You don't know if you're getting the right information because there's so much division because they want to push one agenda.
Yep, exactly. One side wants to push one. My wife had a conversation with someone the other day who goes up to protest at the detention center, the ICE detention center here, just like 30 miles outside of town. She goes up every day. She's very religious, very Christian, goes up, not every day, but several times a week. And she said, well, the ICE, I protest all these ICE people, but they're actually very nice to me. I'm like, now what?
I think we're forgetting there's humans behind both sides. We're all human. I think a lot really has to do with like who's in power or who gives charge. I think it has to do a lot with that because they further polarization.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to cut you off because I want you to say something else. So you have Native American ancestry roots, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Now you go to Powwow. I mean, you have okay. How do Native Americans see this?
Well, they see everyone as immigrants because they were here first. And right now, they really feel for the people who are getting hurt from this because we've had our land taken. And it's funny that they're telling other people that they're not supposed to be here when they're not supposed to be here either.
So for them, it's kind of ironic that people came in. They weren't invited. Right? They came,
They were accepted with open arms. Like we accepted Columbus, and we like told him to come in. We helped him, and then
all along.
Yeah, and then he like stabbed us in the back. And
then
took everything.
so all along so one after another, more and more immigrants coming, more and more, and they just kept pushing, wanting more and more and more land, selling the land that was your ancestors' land, and now deciding who is and is not legal. So from that perspective, it's kind of odd.
Yeah, and Native American culture, it's like land isn't like private property. It doesn't have a cost to it. It's part of our culture, and the land, we're so connected to it. So when we got pushed out and we had to be told to be on these reservations, it was hurtful because that area that they told us we couldn't be on is our culture, is our like ancestry. So it's just really ironic.
So we're up here having this conversation about the law, the rule of law, and the importance of the rule of law. But the voice of a significant percentage of which is about 2% of the U.S. population, are indigenous peoples. Their voice isn't part of that conversation of the rule of law. So, gentlemen, you got to include that in. Don't forget. So now we just really got on a slippery slope, because if we're going to invite your ancestor, your people, right? Because you're mixed. But if we're going to invite that part of you in, now it gets really, really, really complicated. So I want to go back to this just one question, and then we're going to. How much? So we need to send. So we have the rule of law. I mean, you can't just decide randomly. Random people decide which laws we're going to follow and which ones we're not going to follow. So let's say we're going to try to follow them all. You know, it's like when you're driving down 80. You're driving on the highway, and it's acceptable to drive up to like 10 miles over the speed limit. But if you go 11 miles over the speed limit, the cops give you a ticket. It's like, well, hang on a second, man. Speed limit's the speed limit. So the question becomes, how much should we spend? How much social capital should we spend? Like, we got to send some people back home.
Yeah, I definitely don't think everybody, if we let everybody in, it would be too much. It would be happening. So I definitely think we have to make that hard decision to send some people back. But it has always been done better and not so harshly. And I think that's like a big thing. And it's like if you don't get citizenship, like you get sent back, I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing. But I think if you're in the process of getting your citizenship and you're just taken without any due process, I think that's where it's at. I think also the people in charge also have to follow the law, not make new ones.
Okay. So there's another side, right? So whatever they're doing, whatever the government is doing, how the government is making these decisions, you all got to like come up with some kind of standard. What you do in Texas has to be the same thing you do in Minnesota, let's say.
Everyone is allowed due process, and that's written. We're all allowed due process.
What about, are people allowed due process when they're not citizens?
Yes.
So once you're here, you're allowed a certain amount of due process?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we have a question from the stream? Dude, go ahead, bro. Dude, here's the Saudi guy. We talked to Saudis about how you all deal with citizenship, man. We'll make sure we bring that up.
Okay.
You think we're tough? Dude, could I ever be a citizen of Saudi Arabia? Ever?
I think they're working towards maybe not citizenship, but definitely similar benefits to people in Saudi.
Yeah, Pete, if you start thinking like the U.S. is tough, there are a lot of countries out in the world that are a lot more tough.
Yeah, but I'd like to maybe say one thing. First off, I do agree that people in the process of getting the citizenship should be allowed to continue that process. And the statement that I'd like to say is that every country, I believe, has the right to prioritize its people and its economy, the health of both. And when they see lots of people in the country illegally, yes, it's a common assumption to say, let's get rid of them. But when we're thinking about the economy,
hang on. Don't go there. We're going to go there next class.
Next class,
All
okay.
right. So you said when there are lots of people, but the problem is, what's lots of people? What's lots of people? See?
I think it's people that you can't account for or manage.
What's lots, though? You know, like, what is that? We can manage a lot of, you know what I mean? Like, that's a question. So, gentlemen, you got that, right? Lots of people, make sure you define that for us, because that's going to be really important when you decide on our immigration policy. Huh. All right. Wait, can you just hand the mic back?
Hi.
And what's your name?
I'm Harper.
Harper.
Yeah. So this has all been really interesting, and you were saying what's lots of people, and what I've really been getting from this whole class is that it's really complicated, and every immigrant has a different situation, and that's why my core thought on this whole thing is the importance of due process, because every single immigrant has their own story. They have their reasons for being here, their reasons for leaving their home country. I mean, they have, if they committed a crime, they have that background. There's so much complicatedness to it.
Okay.
And if we don't allow people to have due process, then we're throwing that out.
Okay.
And there's no way to solve it.
All right, Harper, you ready? What percentage of the national budget do you want to spend on due process for 140 million people who would like to come to the United States?
Yeah, too much.
I mean, now you got a problem, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah, we need due process, but how much are you going to spend?
Didn't they raise the budget for ICE?
Yeah.
And I feel like there could be
move that to due process?
Well, not all of it, because I don't necessarily think border control is a bad thing at all. But that due process should be the more important than the control part.
Okay. All right, man. Okay. Listen. The point being, you see. Can you go back? Can you go back to this? Go to this slide right here. Just find that one. I know. Yeah, I got. Hey, by the way, nice job. Can you see this here? Harper, what you've gotten so far is how complicated it is. We're only on 2 of the circles. We're only on 2. We got 6 more to go. And so if you think you're confused now, you guys better be really smart. Because you got this? All right, because if you think you're confused now, we haven't even started, right? Wait till we get going here. All right, man. So, hey, can we have a round of applause for everybody? Nice job.